The siren screams in a frequency that should be lethal, but Leo Vance doesn't even flinch. He is a blur of kinetic energy against the backdrop of the venting atmosphere, his boots maglocked to the vibrating floor of Station Zeta. Red emergency lights bathe the corridor in a rhythmic, pulse-pounding crimson. Leo lunges forward, his hands gripping the freezing titanium handle of the manual airlock. His muscles coil and snap like steel cables. Every fiber of his Terran anatomy is screaming under the pressure of the decompression, yet he leans into the vacuum. Behind him, Dr. 2, Thax is huddled in a protective alcove, four spindly limbs trembling as the xylophone physician watches the impossible. To Thax, the structural integrity of a body is a sacred, brittle thing. To the creature from Earth, it is merely a suggestion. Leo's teeth are bared in a grin that looks less like a smile and more like a declaration of war against physics. The scene freezes a snapshot of high-gravity defiance before the memory pulls back to the sterile white light silence of the med bay 3 hours earlier. Dr. Telf. Thax had approached the examination table with the cautious grace of a being made of spun glass. Before him sat the first representative of the newest members of the Galactic Council. In the dossiers, humans were whispered about as the ultimate anomaly, the Space Orcs of the Orion Arm. Thax had dismissed the rumors as hyperbole until he activated the deep-tissue bioscanner. "What are you?" Thax had whispered, his vocal membranes vibrating in shock. Leo Vance had looked up, tossing a small metal sphere between his palms with casual, terrifying coordination. "Just a guy from a high-gravity rock, Doc." "Why the long face?" Thax didn't answer. He was staring at the skeletal overlay on his holographic display. The imaging showed a roadmap of survival that defied every law of xylophone biology. 17 distinct skeletal fractures had been recorded over the course of Leo's life. In any other civilized species, such trauma would be a death sentence or a permanent transition to a liquid support tank. Yet here was this apex predator, sitting upright, radiating a localized heat that made the room feel smaller. Thax pointed a trembling digit at the scan of Leo's forearm. "This radius, it has been snapped completely. And here, the ribs, they have been pulverized and knit back together. How are you standing?" "This is a testament to no. It is a defiance of biological limits." Leo glanced at the screen and shrugged. That was a bad summer in the Jovian mines. "We have this thing called Wolf's Law. Our bones don't just heal, they adapt. They get denser where you stress them. You call it trauma, we call it Tuesday." It was more than just bone density. Thax watched the readouts for Leo's internal homeostasis. Even under the stress of the medical exam, the Terran's heart rate was a steady, rhythmic thrum. His body was a self-regulating fortress of human ingenuity. "You come from a death world," Thax murmured, his awe beginning to override his fear. "Evolution on Earth chose violence." Leo stood up, the sheer mass of his frame casting a long shadow over the fragile physician. "We prefer to call it the Terran spirit, Doc. We aren't built to be perfect. We're built to be repaired." The conversation was cut short by a bone-shaking jolt that rocked the entire station. A proximity alert blared, followed by the sickening grind of metal on metal. The hull had been breached. As the atmosphere began to thin, Thax felt his internal pressure dropping, his vision blurring as his delicate systems began to fail. Leo didn't hesitate. He grabbed Thax by the shoulder, his grip firm but strangely careful. "Stay behind me, Doc. I'm going to show you what a Death Worlder does when things get breezy." The manual override lever screams against the torrent of escaping atmosphere, a high-pitched mechanical shriek that pierces the roaring wind. Leo Vance plants his mag boots wider, the floor plates vibrating violently beneath him. To Dr. Thax, the scene is a blur of terrifying motion, but for Leo, the world has narrowed to a singular point of focus. This is the biological payload of adrenaline, nature's combat drug dumping into the Terran's bloodstream, dilating his pupils and converting fear into raw kinetic horsepower. With a roar that rivals the decompression alarm, Leo wrenches the titanium lever downward. The hydraulics engage with a thunderous thud, sealing the bulkhead and cutting off the vacuum. The sudden cessation of wind leaves a ringing in the air. The temperature has plummeted, coating the corridor in a flash-frozen layer of ice. Thax uncurls from the alcove, his limbs stiff and sluggish, his carapace frosted white. He looks toward the human, expecting to see a corpse. The force required to seal that door should have shattered the xylophane equivalent of a spine 3 times over. Instead, Leo is leaning against the sealed hatch, panting clouds of steam into the freezing air. He clutches his side, his face pale, but his eyes are bright, burning with that impossible internal heat. "You're damaged," Thax wheezes, his scanner trembling in his claw. "Your humerus implies a micro-fracture. Your cortisol levels are lethal." Leo waves a hand, grimacing as he straightens up. He taps his chest. "Just a crack. It'll heal stronger. That's the deal, remember?" Thax watches as Leo pushes off the wall, moving not toward the med bay for his own treatment, but toward a trapped crew member pinned under a fallen conduit. The Terran lifts the debris heavy enough to crush a standard service droid and drags the unconscious alien to safety. It is a display of humanity that transcends simple biology. It is the HFY factor the casual reports ignored. They focused on the violence, missing the protective ferocity that fuels it. Weeks later, the great rotunda of the Galactic Council is bathed in the soft blue luminescence of the judicial lights. Dr. Prath. Thax stands at the podium, a holographic projection of Leo's skeletal structure rotating above him. The cracks, the breaks, the healed fissures, they glow gold on the display. "You asked me to assess the threat level of the Terrans." Thax addresses the assembly, his voice amplified across the chamber. "You called them Space Orcs, brute instruments of chaos. You were wrong." He magnifies the image of the healed ribs. "I have studied their evolutionary biology. On their world, gravity tries to crush them, and the sun tries to burn them. They do not survive by avoiding damage. They survive by absorbing it. When a death worlder breaks, they do not remain broken. They rebuild the site of the injury with calcified armor." Thax looks up at the silent rows of alien delegates. "We strive for perfection and preservation. We fear the crack in the hull. But the humans? They embrace the fracture. I am proposing a new field of medical study based on human ingenuity and biological resilience. We must learn not how to avoid pain, but how to use it." The hologram shifts to a video feed of Leo Vance, back on duty, laughing with a crewmate while welding a patch on the hull. "They teach us a lesson the galaxy has forgotten," Thax concludes, his eyes fixed on the image of the resilient Terran. "Damage isn't destiny. It is fuel.